Nigeria loses approximately $500 million to cybercrime annually, including losses from phishing, SIM swap fraud, identity theft, and other nefarious activities. Despite the enactment of the Cybercrime Act in 2015, this crime continues to thrive. The question is, why? Foreign dimensions to this illicit activity and concerted efforts by parties to end this subculture that's created an image crisis for Nigeria and Nigerians is at the core of our conversation on Dateline Abuja with our global cybersecurity expert. And we'll get to that conversation after we update you on the major stories from Nigeria's presidency. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. What happened this week in Nigeria's seat of power? Here's a rundown on our Abuja wrap.
President Bola Tinubu was in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, where he attended the Africa Heads of State Energy Summit. The president was received by the Foreign Minister of Tanzania, Ambassador Mahmoud Thabit Kombo, and Chargé d'Affaires of Nigeria High Commission to Tanzania, Ambassador Salisu Suleiman. A flag-waving crowd was also on hand to welcome the president. The two-day summit hosted by the government of Tanzania, the African Union, the African Development Bank Group, and the World Bank saw President Bola Tinubu deliver a national statement reaffirming Nigeria's commitment to achieving universal access to energy and its leadership role in Africa's energy sector at the summit. President Bola Tinubu has since returned to Nigeria after the meeting. Meanwhile, the West African map is now wearing a new look, as three countries, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, formally ceased to be members of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The three countries, which are under military rule, had on January 29, 2024, announced their intention to withdraw from ECOWAS, citing dissatisfaction with the bloc's sanctions and other issues. Vice President Kashim Shettima says the commitment of President Bola Tinubu's administration to women empowerment is not a cosmetic performance, but a fundamental pillar of national development. He stated this at the commencement of a two-day gender inclusion conference in Abuja. He noted that women must be at the forefront of Africa's economy, which is projected to hit $29 trillion by 2050. The convener of the Revolution Now movement, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, has been arraigned by the Nigeria police on charges of cybercrime before Justice Musa Liman of the Federal High Court, Abuja. The police had filed a 16-count charge against him. He's been accused of posting a picture of the Inspector General of Police on his X handle, where he commented, "Mediocrity, incompetence, corruption. A country run by characterless people cannot make progress." He also, through his X handle, said the IGP Kaide Gbetokun will destroy the Nigeria police if we don't act now. He pleaded not guilty when the charges were read to him. He was granted administrative bail but rejected the bail conditions, after which he was granted bail of 10 million naira to be paid.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the Nigerian police are raising alarms on what they say is a new trend of foreigners taking over Nigeria's cyberspace to commit fraud in Nigeria. In the past month, two major cybercrime academies where youths were allegedly being trained in digital-related heists were uncovered in Lagos and Abuja by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The EFCC spokesperson, Wilson Uwujaren, says 4 Chinese nationals and 104 Nigerians were recently arrested in a business apartment in the Gudu area of Abuja. 67 males, 4 of them were Chinese, and 38 females were allegedly involved in a hotel review job scam, targeting victims and hotels across Europe and other regions. The federal government in December of 2024 arraigned 130 suspects, including 113 foreign nationals, 87 males and 26 females, primarily of Chinese and Malaysian origin, along with 17 Nigerian accomplices, 4 males and 13 females. These individuals were accused of involvement in advanced cybercrimes, hacking operations, and activities that pose threats to national security. A report by Beacon Security and Intelligence states that in December of 2024 alone, businesses faced over 2,300 cyber attacks weekly. What is going on and how do we handle this situation? My guest on the program is Mr. Hakeem Ajijola, a renowned security expert who serves as chair of the African Union Cybersecurity Expert Group, chair of the Nigeria Data Protection Bureau, Strategic Roadmap and Action Plan Committee, chair of the Nigerian National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy Review Committee, and chair of Nigeria Computer Society Cybersecurity Advisory Group. Mr. Hakeem Ajijola, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you for having me here.
So let's talk about cybersecurity. We're seeing everyone up in arms. The EFCC, the police spokesperson recently said there's an uptick in cybersecurity crime. We're seeing the arrests across the country. It does feel like the police is saying that there is an uptick in this particular crime. What do you think is responsible for that?
Well, first and foremost, I think there's an uptick in a lot of crimes, cyber and non-cyber. But within the cybersecurity realm, or the cybercrime realm, because there's a difference between the two, we'll get into that in a moment, there is a general uptick even around the world for a couple of reasons. One, the tools to commit the crime have actually become easier to use. So a lower level of sophistication is required, which broadens the base of people who can enter that criminal undertaking. The second challenge you have is at the user end. I think maybe the economics, maybe there is social stresses. I think it makes a lot of us a little more gullible to what one would call easy options, quick reach schemes, and so on and so forth. So these, I would argue, are part of that, you know.
We hear the DG of the NOA and other people who speak about our value system in the country. And it does feel like in the past few years, that value system has degenerated up to where these crimes, these Yahoo boys and fraud and all these cases that we're seeing, people getting arrested for, especially with cybercrime, where they've even become a norm in many parts of the country. The concept of people frowning at such a behavior, they're like, oh, you don't know. We're just trying to get our own inside of it, as though it's a normal thing. Is there a way to reverse this trend?
There's always a way. It's just that it's extremely difficult. Because again, from my perspective, it's not simply about technology. It's more about mindset. It's very easy for us to blame young people, but at the same time, you have to look at the environment they're in, because they also face their own pressures. Some of them are self-induced, such as peer pressure. I see my colleague driving a fancy car. I'd like to drive a fancy car. I see, you know, if I'm a lady, a colleague having the best of dresses and, you know, maybe travels. Who doesn't want good things? But having said that, there are other aspects. One of the big aspects is there are parents today who are pushing these things, but also our leadership. We are not getting, and again, I'm looking across the continent, we're not getting the kind of leadership by example that I think is necessary. There is no need for a motorcade of an executive of either a state or a country, you know, being 40, 50 cars, or the highest politicians getting salaries that their counterparts, for example, in the US that has a much bigger GDP, don't get. So again, I think you can't just, we're seeing a resultant effect, but I don't think we are always very clear or very good at understanding what are those root causes. And there are quite a few of them. And the technology is an enabler, but not necessarily the cause.
So let's talk about the African Union Cybersecurity Expert Group, which you head. Yeah. And then I know you had a lot of cybersecurity
despite having a bald head.
In Nigeria as well. What are some of the trends that are being picked up, at least maybe in the past 2 years? What are some of the trends that are picked up? And in your view, how is, at least the government in Nigeria, how are we responding to these trends?
There are a whole bunch of trends, but let me give you an anecdotal example. If you had invited me to come and speak here a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have told you, well, there are these processes going on in the UN where they are developing norms of state behavior and interaction in cyberspace, and that Africa needs a generation, of, for example, of cyber diplomats who can help to develop those norms. But now that the first set, I mean, others will be developed, have been put in place, and in fact, there is even a UN Cybercrime Convention, which was approved in November 2024. We now need similar expertise to implement them. But today, I would use quite a different terminology. Nigeria and other African countries need to begin to engage in what I would call anticipatory diplomacy, of which cybercrime, cybersecurity is one, but we're looking at quantum, we're looking at AI, we're looking at military diplomacy, we're looking at Internet of Things. And so we're not very proactive. What is coming over the horizon that we don't know about? And from my experience, the single biggest challenge we have faced across the continent, not just Nigeria, is often a misconception that cybercrime, cybersecurity are not African problems to solve. You know, this technology is created by somebody over there and they will solve it and give us. No, we need to be able to, because again, when you talk of issues of sovereignty, not just data sovereignty, I'm talking about national sovereignty, you need to be able to anticipate what's coming down the pipeline in the future. Well, how do you place yourself to be able to deal with them? Even if you can't deal with them particularly effectively, at least if you're aware and you're beginning to mitigate, if you can take care of 50% of your problem, it's better than 100% of your. I think too often we spend a lot of time dwelling on this problem, the hit to the economy, and Nigeria loses billions of naira. It damages our reputation. You know, it's part of what makes our green passport not to have the oomph that we feel it deserves.
The respect.
Yes, the respect. Thank you. But what we've not appreciated is that, for example, the cybersecurity solutions market for Africa this year is supposed to be, this is 2025, probably in the area of about $5 billion US. Over the next decade, there are some people that project it might hit anywhere from $15 to $30 billion. That's opportunity to create wealth, opportunity to generate jobs. And as a byproduct, you can get taxes. Let's also look at what President Tinubu signed in 2023, the Data Protection and Privacy Act. There are estimates that given the number of organizations that require data protection officers, Nigeria alone will need 500,000 people to be just data protection officers, not the auditing companies. Today, about 243, I think that was a statistic last week, organizations that do the auditing and data control process organizations have been registered. We need to build that solution value chain so that we can actually benefit from solving the headache. I just talked about African market. The global market is multiple times that. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. Quick anecdotal example. If you have a young child, any of the audience, you give them your handset, you give them your tablet, what did they do? They do wonders. They're, you know, marvels. Who's teaching them how to be safe? That's a business opportunity.
So the safety bit of it is where we've been talking about, but when we're going to go on short break.
Okay.
And when we come back from that break, I wanted to talk about the foreign elements, because among the arrests that we're seeing from the EFCC, from immigration, from the police, we're seeing a lot of foreign nationals, and we're seeing them speaking up about how this dimension has come into our situation and laundering our image when it comes to cyber security and, you know, trust for the Nigerian, because a lot of these crimes have gone abroad. So we'll be talking about that when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Dateline Abuja. If you've just joined us, we've been speaking with Mr. Hakeem Ajijola, the chair of the African Union Cybersecurity Expert Group. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. So let's talk about the trends in our dear country? We'll start off with these sorts of arrests that we're seeing. Schools, in fact, that's what we heard from the EFCC.
Absolutely.
A school where they are teaching people how to do this crime. It almost feels like we're in the theater of the bazaar when a crime is being taught in a place that is popular. It wasn't in the bushes, it was in town, at least in Abuja here.
And even Lagos.
And even in Lagos and in rivers as well. So talk to us about these arrests. First of all, is this the way to go, these arrests of everybody? We parade 100, 200 young people, say, oh, these people are committing cybercrime and we caught them in the act. Is that the way to go?
Okay, let's break it down into a few components. First and foremost, certainly those who commit crimes, those who aid and abet, those who teach, one would argue do need to be arrested and prosecuted. So there is certainly a need for this. The EFCC itself, I think, has been very instrumental in tackling cybercrime in particular and endeavoring to ensure accountability. Now, that said, a couple of things arise. First of all, my understanding back in Obasanjo's time, the model, one of the key models for the EFCC was based on the Serious Fraud Office in the UK. And basically, the Serious Fraud Office does not tackle every crime, cyber or otherwise. There are thresholds, and these thresholds are publicly known. So that, for example, you know, me and you have a misunderstanding about 50 kobo. I can't just go and report to the EFCC and, you know, they run after you. So I think society itself, EFCC needs to make it clear to society, what are those thresholds? What are the kind of things below which it doesn't touch? Part of the challenge I see is that too often in Nigeria, we tend to arrest and then investigate, not investigate and then arrest. Because when you arrest somebody, basically the perception is you are being arrested because you are guilty of something. So that for me negates innocent until proven otherwise. So I think we need to revisit that. Then when you talk about parading, again, I think that's extremely problematic. In of itself, probably at the personal level, I'm not very comfortable with parading. But I think also I'm not comfortable with it because of the double standards. You had somebody who allegedly had to forfeit 275 premises. That person was not paraded. But yet, I don't know, some 18-year-old Nigerian who has a laptop that is attending school to learn, not that he has done, you are parading. These are the kind of things that
I think it keys into the culture of shame. If as a young person, if I feel like I'm going to be paraded, let's even use me as a person. If I feel like I'm going to be paraded, and my father would see me on television, my village people would see me on television, the people I go to church with would see me on television. That shame might deter me and other people like me from embarking. But
that's the key word thing,
from entering
like
into,
you.
Yes.
Because I think with a lot of younger people, it's actually backfired. It works the other way. It has become a badge of honor to be seen, you know, as quote unquote a bad actor, you know. Because, as we've said earlier, if your parents are willing to raise money to pay for you to go to a school to learn crime, are they going to be ashamed? I doubt it. So I think it doesn't work in that sense. Maybe, and again, I know you're a spring chicken, but maybe for people who are a little more mature, that shame may work. But again, family upbringing, that shame may work. But I think for a lot of younger people today, those things, that shame doesn't work.
I want to talk about this foreign dimension.
Yes.
We see people from different nationalities. It was a little jarring when we saw the pictures and the videos. And we think, well, is something going on? Why would someone who's from Malaysia or China or whatever countries that we're hearing from those who arrest these people, why would you leave your country to come and do cybercrime in Nigeria, where we have network issues, our broadband penetration is not strong enough.
Okay.
So what's the deal? But what we are hearing from the EFCC is that they come here because they're a good place to hide. We're a little vulnerable here, and they perpetrate crimes across the world from here. But just so you can give us an idea of this foreign dimension to this issue.
Well, again, I do see the point that yes, maybe not necessarily that our laws at times are deficient, but as always, the implementation of them, your ability to circumvent, what's the word? You're caught red-handed and, a few favors here and there.
Let me put it in low. You can get away with more here.
You can get away with possibly. But again, you see, that is not about the foreigner. That's about us. You see, we have to look at, they say when you point, the three fingers are pointing back at you. And in this and many similar cases, these fingers are pointing back at us.
What are we getting wrong?
Well, I started with that misunderstanding by leadership that cyber is not an African problem to solve. I think that's where it starts. Governance. I didn't say government, governance. Governance, you were talking about your policies, you're talking about your strategies, you're talking about your legislation. I'll give you a very quick example. The Nigerian Cybercrime Act 2015 was amended in 2023. But actually, the only thing that was specifically amended was the levy. And that's not good enough. We actually need to have a much more comprehensive. For example, I would advocate that the Cybercrime Act needs two new acts. One that is on cybersecurity, that basically devolves power to the Office of the National Security Advisor, take care of things at that international level, take care of critical infrastructure, put in preventive measures. The other act is actually a proper Cybercrime Act that actually now is devolved to the Federal Ministry of Justice, because at the end of the day, they are the people that prosecute, you see? So if you have something that says, you do this, it's wrong, this is the penalty, that's a crime. So we do need to separate that. That's where I would start. Remember, yes, 2015 is effectively what we still have. A lot has evolved. We have quantum. Today, the encryptions you use for WhatsApp and the like are all at risk, even military encryption. Like I said, you have IoT, you have AI that we're all abuzz with. These things also need to be factored into the legislation. So legislation in of itself and policy and strategy are living documents that need to evolve because the sector, the crimes, the issues are evolving very rapidly. That's where I would start.
I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma.
Mr. Hakim Ajijola, for being with us on the program,
Thank
and
you.
good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks to my guest and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. Please take your data protection seriously. Keep your PIN numbers to yourself. And as with most things, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handle showing right now on your screens. Thank you so much for watching. I am Kayla Magwa. See you next time.